come up. Okay, welcome everybody to our second networking event of the Festival of Learning. And what we hope this will achieve is that you can come and talk about the services that your agency offers, and also then can hear what other agencies offer as well. And so that we're hoping to get a little bit of dialogue between you, and also to share what you offer with other people as well. So I'm not sure who the first presenter is, and Derry, my colleague, has worked very hard to set all this up. So
Jenkins project is going.
Oh, so Jenkins Centre. Okay, lovely, thank you. And I know that you've been present at some of our events this week and last week, so thank you very much for your attendance. And I know that people are very interested in what the Jenkins Centre have to offer, so lovely. Over to you.
Brilliant. Okay, so it's myself and Holly. I'm just going to share with you the presentation, so bear with me a minute, because you know I'm not that great at technology, so just bear with me. Okay. So obviously we've only got a couple of minutes, so we will whiz through this quite quickly, and then we'll leave space if anyone's got any questions at the end. So just to kind of introduce myself quickly, I'm Amy Davis. I'm the treatment manager for the Jenkins Centre projects, and I'm also the service manager for a new project we're running in Nottinghamshire. Holly, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Holly, and I'm the service manager for the Jenkins Centre within LLR.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm just going to quickly run through what we actually offer. So within LLR, we offer quite a few different programs at the moment. So all of our programs are Respect accredited. So we offer interventions for men and women who want some help and support to stop using abusive behaviours towards their partners or ex-partners. So our main program is the 24-week intervention program, which is called the Second Step. It's a intervention program that's kind of broke down into, the best way to think about it is 2 modules. So the first half, which we call the Safer Relationships module, is all about understanding what domestic abuse is, learning some safety skills, and learning the basics towards change. And then the second half is all about really kind of embedding those skills, thinking about actually what is a respectful and healthy relationship, what are the skills around those kind of relationships, and understanding impacts. And we look a bit deeper into kind of stuff like fathering and their own childhood as well. That's kind of a very quick kind of run through of what the program looks like. Alongside a 24-week program, we run our partner support. So that is completely voluntary. We don't want to put any pressure on partners or ex-partners to engage in services. It's really about empowering them. So what we do is throughout the process, whoever's on interventions, their partner would be offered emotional support, and that's really tailored to whatever their needs are. It might be just check-ins, or it might be that they actually want to meet with partner support once a week to offer a lot more in-depth kind of support around practical needs and emotional needs. We also run now the Step Up program, so that's tailored around fatherhood and fathering skills. So in order to do that, someone does need to complete our 24-week intervention program. It's a 10-week program that focuses all around the impact on children, parenting skills, and building relationships with children, and also understanding, if there has been separation, how parenting exists within that context. We also have the Young People's Project as well, which is an intervention program for children between the age of 10 and 18 who are using abusive behaviours towards their partners and parents. And then we have just started a foundation program. So that is a 6 weeks awareness building course. So it's not intervention in any way. It is solely just about building an awareness for those that aren't suitable for their intervention program, because perhaps they're not taking enough accountability, and they don't feel that actually their behaviours are abusive. So we've just put that kind of in place, and it's very much kind of very new to the service, in a hope that we'll get people to think about their behaviours and maybe take that accountability and that first step towards change so they can go on to the second step programme. So I'm going to pass over to Holly, who's going to talk a little bit about our eligibility and the suitability for those programmes.
Thanks, Amy. So in terms of our eligibility, a main focus for us is whether someone is currently in any type of proceedings. So if they're in criminal proceedings due to a domestic abuse offence, then we wouldn't be able to work with them at that point. And similarly, if they're in private law proceedings in terms of child custody, or if child services are involved with the family and they're taking it into proceedings in terms of, again, child custody or child contact. The reason that we don't work with people if they're involved in proceedings is due to the possibility of things being misinterpreted in terms of the kind of work that's being done, or people, you know, possibly taking it that we're a kind of miracle cure, maybe, that we're not. So we do it really to ensure the safety of the victims and the children involved in that case as well. We don't want our work to be taken in the wrong way or used in the wrong way. We also can't work with people if they've previously disengaged from our service within the last 6 months or a similar service. Again, linking to what Amy was saying in terms of us wanting to have people that are motivated and wanting to work on their behaviour. So we try and kind of give people that time and space before we would then work with them again. And in terms of referrals, we need all of the information for the perpetrators and a current or ex-partner, so that we've got enough information to be working with them and so that we can provide that partner support service for the victims that might be involved in the case. Amy, can you show the next slide for me? Thank you. So in terms of suitability, I suppose it's just really important to show that we take our assessments really, really seriously, and we spend a lot of time with our clients to assess whether they are ready to go into or not. So we look at the risks that are presented, but we also look at motivation to change, levels of accountability, so whether there's any minimisation, denial or blame that's still present. And that's one of our main factors. We need to know that people are ready to be working on it and they know what they want to be working on. They've got goals within that and they can take responsibility for their actions in order to then change that behaviour moving forward. We look at if there's any barriers to possible change or possible involvement in the programme as well. So we need to ensure that we can have commitment from our clients. We do have a set kind of criteria in terms of how many sessions can be missed, and we need to ensure that everybody's coming to enough sessions so that we're, you know, not having to put more resources into it, but also so that they are fully taking on board the learning that we're putting forward and being able to take forward the material that they're looking at. So yeah, and one of the things that we would look at is in terms of kind of mental health, drug and alcohol, those kind of things, to see if we can put in place the support that somebody might need to engage fully with our service, or whether we might need to signpost them somewhere else first before we would work with them. Okay, Amy, do you want to have a look at the next one?
Yeah, okay, so that is really the very basic elements of our service, and we'll open up to kind of questions in a moment. I just wanted to quickly run through some of the other projects we're running across the country as well, so that maybe if you do have service users or the professionals that you're aware of that are looking for the services, you are aware. So we've just started a pilot project, well, I just say just started at the beginning of the year, which is the Your Choice project, which is in partnership with Equations, Women's Aid and Women's Aid Juno in Nottinghamshire, which we're very excited about, with funding from the Home Office, and we're hoping that does move forward. So it's really good that we're starting to offer that the service for perpetrators as well in Nottinghamshire. And then we have the Make a Change project, which is in Lincolnshire, and that's been running for a couple of years, and that's also in partnership with Respect. So we really are kind of passionate about making sure that we get this across the UK really, and that we're getting as many people as we can take those steps towards change. On here is the information around how to refer for the LLR project. we can send this information out to you separately, and we've just had a huge push as well on a lot of our media stuff. So we do have lots of new leaflets for professionals and for individuals as well, which we'd be happy to circulate as well if anyone's interested. I'm just going to pin this down, and then if anyone does have any questions and we have time for that, then me and Holly are happy to answer any.
Hi, I'd just like to ask, so how many people do you work with? Because LLR is quite it's a big area, isn't it? And I'm guessing DV issues well, we know we've got more awareness, and there's a lot more. There's a lot more of it about. That sounds awful. I don't, but we know it's a high priority. So I just wondered how many people you're working with.
Yeah, so we've really expanded over the last couple of years. So we take an intake every 6 weeks for our group projects, but we also run one-to-one projects for those that, for whatever reason, wouldn't be suitable for a group program, whether or not that's language, maybe same sex, or maybe there's kind of other things that make the case a bit more complex, so it needs to be in a one-to-one. So we also have now a couple of online groups, and we also have the face-to-face groups. So our numbers are quite big, but we don't have a waiting list for that intake per se. It is just about kind of our assessment process takes about 6 to 8 weeks, and then it's going on that list for the next intake, which is every 6 weeks. So yeah, to answer your question, the groups can be up to 12, and as it stands, we don't have a waiting list for those groups, so it's going quite well in that sense, being able to offer that service.
And does it have quite a good success rate, the work that you do? I know that's difficult to perhaps quantify sometimes, but
no, yeah. So the way we kind of establish that is we go to partners and ex-partners for feedback to see whether or not they see any reduction in risk, whether they're feeling safer. And overall, we've had quite a good success rate in reducing the violence. I think the last percentage, was it 98% in reduction of physical abuse? Yeah. And then and I think the beauty of it as well, because we do work with survivors and victims, is that even where it hasn't worked, what it means is if those people are staying in that relationship, or if they're wanting to leave, we're able to safeguard, and we are able to offer the extra support to continue making sure that they're safe. And after someone's completed, or even if they disengage, their partners or ex-partners continue having support from us for up to a year. So we really are kind of everything we do is survivor focused in that sense.
Brilliant, thank you. You're one of the only agencies that I'm aware of that work with perpetrators. I mean, I might be wrong with that, but that's my understanding. Yeah. I also heard a statistic that if we put as much money into working with survivors as we did with working with perpetrators, actually we'd be a lot better off, so we put a lot of money into supporting people.
We feel like it's massively important, because you're never going to be able to stop people suffering abuse if you're not working with the perpetrators. So that for us, we're thinking of it in terms of, we do the work with the perpetrators in order to protect victims. So you need that holistic approach to it in order for it to be effective, really.
So my background is working in the children's residential sector, and a lot of the young people that go through that sector quite often end up either side of that equation, either the victim or the perpetrator. And considering some of their histories, it's not really that surprising. So I think you're right that work does need to be done with perpetrators as well as victims, survivors.
Absolutely. Sorry. And I think the Young People's Project that we run as well is really important for that reason, because those behaviours often then leak, don't they, into adulthood, and someone doesn't just turn 18 and then all of a sudden go, oh, I'm 18 and I know how to live a healthy and respectful life. It just doesn't work that way. Yeah.
Sorry, has anybody else got any questions? I've hogged that a little bit, but very interesting service that's being offered there, and different ways of sort of groups and online and face-to-face one-to-one sort of sessions. So anybody else got any questions? Lovely. Well, thank you so much for your time. Really, really interesting.
Thank you.
And we shall share that. And we now have Zoe from LGBT who's going to present. Thank you.
Just disappeared to make Daria panic there.
Yeah, I was like, where did she go?
I could see my battery going down and down and down, and I am plugged in. I was like, I might just switch the socket on before my my battery dies. So if I just switch to presenting view. So I'm Zoe. I am she, her pronouns, and I'm actually the partnerships and training manager. I have a number of different job titles. It really depends on what you're contacting me about. And that is mostly because we're a really small team here at the centre. So we wear multiple hats. And I've been here for about a year now. The centre itself, however, or the organisation's been here since 1976, and it was started as a helpline to support mainly gay men. So it started as Leicester Gay Line and was one of the, well, it was the first telephone helpline service in the UK. And we actually predate Stonewall. So although we're quite a small organisation, we have a really long history of supporting LGBT plus communities. The centre's obviously grown and changed throughout that time to offer more services, support more people, becoming a full charity in 2010, and adding the transgender part of LGBT plus communities to our name officially. And our current vision, so we've just been through a period of strategic review and change, is to celebrate, support and connect our centre users, stakeholders and wider communities in which they live and work, and to influence and affect positive change and co-create ambitious and sustainable services. And that's just recognising actually that Leicester's quite a small city, and whilst it's quite a diverse city in terms of LGBT plus venues and accessibility, there isn't actually an awful lot in Leicester itself. We do work across Leicester, Leicestershire and Rutland. Our work's split across the three bits that we do. So we have adult services, children, young people and family services, and we obviously work with partner and external agencies and organisations on a number of different levels. We provide information, advice and guidance. We run a number of social and support groups across all of those areas, so children, young people and families and adults, and we provide advocacy, although we don't have any legal support. So our advocacy sometimes is about referring to better placed organisations, but just helping sometimes, particularly with children and young people, advocating in schools for some of the young people that we work with, helping some of our parents to advocate, self-advocate with schools and services that they engage with, but equally for some of our adults that access services, advocating in terms of support with issues to do with employment or access to services and things. We do that through multiple variety methods and ways of doing that. So we have one-to-one work and support, and anybody can access a one-to-one here. We also have the IAPT contract through Vita, so we support Vita with first step access to IAPT services. We do a lot of group social and support, and it's quite funny, our social and support. So sometimes we call them support groups, sometimes we call them social groups, and sometimes they're supported social spaces. And that very much depends on the group and where the group is at, because some groups will form and come to a natural conclusion, and then we'll revisit that piece of work and perhaps form a new group, but other groups kind of sustain. So some of our social and support groups, we have Reach, which is for people who are perhaps at the beginning of their coming out journey, regardless of their age, although that is an adult group. We have our Living Out Loud, which is our adult trans group. which meets weekly. We have Connect, which is a digital platform for all of our adult groups. For young people, we have 2 youth sessions a week here at the centre, face-to-face, and 1 digital session. And we've maintained our digital delivery post COVID, now that we're able to do face-to-face delivery, because actually what happened for us during COVID was that for some people it made it harder to access, and we did a lot of work around engaging and working with people that were struggling to access digitally, or because they don't have a safe space at home, are unable to access digitally. But equally, we had this raft of new people that could now access the service because we were digital and they didn't have to travel into the centre. So we've maintained our digital platform and will continue to do that. Equally, we have a group called Strong Ties, which is for parents, carers and significant others of people that come under the trans umbrella. And that's quite an important piece of work for us, which comes under children, young people and families, because often for those transitioning, be that medically or not, they may, and socially transitioning or coming out as non-binary, the people for whom that is relevant have often done a lot of work at the point at which they come out to their family, and their family are playing catch up and their parents are playing catch up. And often need quite a lot of support in kind of making their own transitions within that. So we have a monthly group for parents and carers, but we do also offer one-to-one support for parents and carers. We hold events and activities, and that's so that people don't need to be defined purely by the group that they're already accessing. So if you're attending the Adult Trans Project, or you're attending REACH, which is more it's not exclusive to LGB communities, but does tend to hold quite a lot of our LGB communities. Our events mean that anybody can come, parents, carers, allies and friends, and it's that opportunity to be somewhere with everybody. And one of the issues that we have in Leicester is actually there are 3 LGBT venues, which isn't actually a lot, or a lot of places for people to go. So by holding events and things, and sometimes those are themed for families to enable people to bring their rainbow family, whatever family means to them. And it might be themed around active well-being, some of that because the participation rates for LGBT plus communities are really low in terms of sport and physical activity and active well-being, and the impact that has on mental health. We have a counselling service, which at times will be funded for particular elements of our communities, depending on what funding we can access for our counselling service. And then we operate the Inclusion Award, which is in partnership with Equalities in Police, Fire, and with both of the universities in Leicester, which is supporting businesses and organisations to look at their policies, procedures and support from an LGBT plus and inclusion perspective. And the Rainbow Flag, which is a partnership with the Proud Trust. And we are the deliverer for the Midlands, or the delivery partner for the Midlands. And the Rainbow Flag is engaging schools in that same thing, looking at their accessibility and inclusion for LGBT plus students, and their support for families and things. So why do we do it? There's some really bad statistics. I won't read them all out. 81% of participants in the Queer Future survey in 2016 hid their sexual orientation and gender identity to some degree, and the majority found hiding their sexuality and gender identity distressing. 93% of people had experienced transphobia. 81 experienced some form of hate crime in 12 months, and that's the Gallup Trans Hate Crime Report in 2020. We do quite a lot of work. We do a lot of consultation with the CCGs. 13% of respondents have experienced some form of unequal treatment from healthcare staff because they're LGBT plus. And 23 have witnessed discriminatory or negative remarks against LGBT plus people by healthcare staff, and that was a Stonewall report in 2018. So that's kind of why we're here, supporting some of those people to navigate some of the things that they engage with outside of here. And in terms of both our REACH project and our adult trans project, it's supporting people to make a transition either from identifying in a way they identified previously. So people may have considered themselves as heterosexual and now they consider themselves as gay or bisexual or pansexual. Happy Bisexual Visibility Week, by the way, which is what it is this week. And it's making that transition between, okay, well, that is what that meant to me before. What does that mean for me now? And how do I navigate the world like this? And the same for people exploring their trans identity, because there will be some form of transition. So we use pronouns a lot at the centre. For some people, their pronouns may change week to week because they're not really quite sure how they're feeling today, or that, you know, they tried a name last week and it didn't fit. So it can take quite a long process, and because the waiting list for trans support is currently about 4 years. So people are living in that difficult situation for a really long period of time. So just to dispel some of the myths, sexuality obviously is who you're attracted to, the LGB part of the organisation, and gender is who you are. So they are two completely different things. And the gender that you're assigned at birth, oh, I've lost my presentation, apologies. The gender that you're assigned at birth may not be the gender that you identify with. And they may be fluid and change over time. They're both innate personal aspects of your identity and not choice. And the way we categorise sexuality is very gendered. So we talk about it being Bisexual Visibility Week. That suggests two genders. But obviously, as people are more and more aware, non-binary suggests that some people don't identify with either of those binary genders. So that might impact the words that they use to talk about sexuality. And sometimes it will depend on somebody's age. So somebody might, of an older generation, might identify as bisexual, and somebody else might perceive that as pansexual. But actually, you can choose how you identify. It doesn't, you know, somebody might see that as pansexual because it includes all genders. But to that person, they are bisexual. So language changes, it's difficult. We, as at the LGBT Centre, enable people to identify for themselves and what that means for them, and the world that they kind of then navigate. And some people are confused about how they intersect. It tends often not to be the person themselves that is confused, but the people that they're talking to or engaging with. So I'll skip through the trans one because I have done a little bit of that, but transgender is an umbrella term. So you can be trans male or trans female, although most trans adults will identify as either male or female. Trans isn't a gender. So if you have transitioned from male to female, you would be considered female rather than trans female. But transgender is also used as an umbrella term, so it includes binary and non-binary identities. It's not a mental illness. Sometimes we do get people referred here for counselling because they've come out as gay or because they've come out as transgender. Quite often people don't need counselling themselves. It happens quite a lot with young people, but we have groups that support that, and we support the parents with that, because when a young person comes out, the adults around them are often the people that, oh, well, you must need some help and you must need some support with that. And whilst they might want to come and spend some time with people that are very similar to them, quite often young people don't need the level of help and support with their gender or sexual identity, sexuality, that the adults around them think that they do. But we have a process with our counselling that supports both the adults and the young people being referred for counselling through that process to decide whether or not counselling is actually right for them. many trans people experience gender dysphoria, so we do offer counselling in terms of the gender dysphoria element of transgender identities, and it can be very distressing. And as I mentioned earlier, with the waiting list, as long as it is both in youth and adult, and I'm sure many of you will be aware of the news happening around the Tavistock and trans young people recently, which has meant that the waiting list for young people and seeking medical support with their transition has gone from 2 years to 4 years, at which point most people are into adult services. So a lot of young people will ask for help kind of around 12, 13, and by the time that help is actually available to them, they're ready to transition to adult services. Processes like puberty, menstruation, pregnancy can be very difficult, particularly with young people. And one of the real issues for trans communities at the minute is that massive waiting list. But it's not all doom and gloom. There are lots of very happy, fulfilled members of trans communities living fabulous lives and doing amazing things. So, are there any questions? I'll turn my presentation off properly this time.
Does anybody have any questions? Oh, Sherry, yeah.
Hiya, can you hear me? My only question really is, are you going to put up your contact details so that I can get hold of you after this to discuss cases and things?
Yes, so everything is on our website. You can self-serve for counselling referrals. Our counselling waiting list is currently around 12 weeks. It isn't funded for young people, those of you that are in kind of sorry. We do our best to find funding. We very much think that people shouldn't be denied access to counselling on a basis, and for adults we have a sliding scale, so depending on what their income is will depend on what they pay for the centre. But one of the real difficulties we have here is, I'm sure you'll all be aware that it's not just the visibility of LGBT plus communities that is increased. We're really looking forward to the census results, by the way, because it's not just the visibility, I don't think, but the community as itself seems to be growing. And the need for services is growing, particularly with the length of the waiting list, because people that might have needed support for this amount of time actually now need support for this amount of time, right at a point at which all the funding's obviously diminishing. So, you know, we're caught in this really difficult place of supporting everybody, and we really do try to support everybody as much as we can with what we can. Our one-to-one work with young people isn't funded at all, but we still do it because it's really important. And it's something that we're looking at doing in our next funding round. Is actually, it's one of the reasons we've kind of looked at how our services are managed and supported here at the centre, so that we can include the parent support, the one-to-one support, the things that people have been receiving moving forward. But yeah, everything's on the website. If it's for counselling, go to the counselling page. There's a referral form for professionals on there and a self-referral form on there. Otherwise, use the contact us and the drop down. It all goes into a single mailbox, but there's 4 of us that access that so that we can respond kind of fairly quickly.
I have myself used services in my work life to support young people that I've been working with. So yeah, really helpful. Sorry, Daria, you wanted to say?
Yes, excuse me, Zoe. Because this is a networking session, I was hoping that I could send everybody's email addresses to everybody. Is that going to be a problem?
Yes, yeah, that's fine.
Thank you.
Info@ is our best one, because obviously if I'm not here, somebody else picks that up. Like, there are 4 people that have access to that mailbox, so somebody will always pick it up and redirect it.
Lovely, thank you. Are there any more questions? I'm aware of time, so I'm not going to warble on with all my questions that I have got. I shall catch you later.
We have to say that we have got training from LGBT centers regularly, and if you're interested to learn more about it, please join our Eventbrite page, subscribe to it, and you will take some notifications when we put the new one on.
Yeah, we do commission training from the LGBT Centre, and it's very, very popular. People really do want to find out about what's, you know, the services that you offer, which are fabulous and have been there, for, like you say, for a long, long time. And it's really, really useful service for young people. Like you say, there does seem to be an expansion. I don't know if it's of awareness or people feeling more comfortable. I don't know what it is, but yeah, it's brilliant. Thank you so much. Thank you, Zoe. I'm now going to ask Bethan from 2020 to talk, to present, please.
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Ooh. Let's see if it's going to allow me to share. No, okay, we'll share the desktop. There we go. Hopefully that's working. It doesn't mean I now can't see anybody, but can you still all hear me okay and see what's on the screen?
Yeah, we can hear you, and we've got slides on the screen. Yeah.
Super. So I'm the program manager for Love for Life at 2020. Possibly some of you have heard of 2020 before. As a charity, it's been around for a long time. But at the start of, ironically, 2020, it went through a bit of a change. Our centres that were based in Leicester and Loughborough and also in Derby City were closed down. And our focus changed a bit from employability support and training for young people to being more about pastoral and holistic support. So the only program that we're running currently as a charity is our Love for Life program. It was the very first one that 2020 established, so it's always been running in the background, but it's now really come to the forefront of our work, and it's going to be that program that's kind of our signature, and we'll then re-expand out from there. So we've kind of shrunk a bit as an organisation, and we're now in the growing stage again. So I only took up this role just over a month ago, so I apologise if there's any questions I don't know the answer to. So Love for Life is all about empowering young people aged 11 to 19, particularly around their relationships. So the kind of core of the work we do is all around relationship and sex education and supporting young people to build really positive, healthy views of themselves, of their body, and therefore to be able to engage in positive relationships. That said, with that at the core of our work, there's loads of different themes that we explore around body image, engaging with social media, positive behaviours in family relationships. But it is all designed to work into that kind of core area. And our belief underpinning that is that when young people feel good about themselves and feel empowered, they will also be more likely to make healthy and positive choices in other areas of their life, so around their health and their education. All of our literature now says young people. However, this is a service that is predominantly aimed at girls. The reason that we've switched the young people language is we have an increasing number of non-binary young people that are engaging with our services. If they're affected by female issues, if they're perhaps female presenting, then they might still feel comfortable with our services. So you'll see on our referral forms that we refer to girls or young people who identify as girls. We don't at the moment have the equivalent service for boys, although that is an area that we're hoping to expand into. A bit too far. In terms of how we work, there's a few different services that we have available. So perhaps the biggest thing that we do is our one-to-one mentoring. So that's up to 12 weeks of targeted support, usually through hourly sessions, one-on-one with a dedicated mentor and youth worker. It's designed for young people where there might be a specific problem that's been identified by themselves, by their parents, or by other professionals involved with them, whether that's their school or social services. And there's particular targets they want to achieve around that. So we work with a lot of young people who've been identified engaging in negative sexual behaviours, perhaps sexting, being sexually active very young, being in unhealthy relationships. And that one-to-one support will be targeted around that. So the young people will be supported to devise an action plan that they want to work on, to decide the themes that they want to talk about in those sessions, and then they'll receive that support and be guided towards understanding their improvements in those areas. It is important to say that we're mentors and youth workers. We're not trained counsellors or therapists. So often our mentoring will intersect with counselling or therapy. It might be something that young people move on to after they've completed a course of therapy, or something that's used before that to try and de-escalate the situation so they don't need those critical services. Because, as has been mentioned a few times, the waiting lists for that kind of support are often long enough that the young people, the issue is sort of less relevant, or the young person has already reached a critical stage by the time they're offered that support. With our one-to-one mentoring at the moment, we have spaces available in Derby City and in Loughborough, and a short waiting list in Leicester, so we'd be able to engage with any new referrals within 6 to 8 weeks. We also offer support groups. So for some young people, this is a better way to engage with our services. So these are small group interventions that can be up to 15 young people in one group, but it's much more common for it to sit somewhere around 7 or 8. And these are a little less intensive, so perhaps more suitable for young people where there are some early signs of concern, or the young person themselves isn't particularly comfortable with relationships as a topic, or with their own body and self-esteem, but they don't feel that they want to be referred for specialist intervention, or they've not reached a stage where that support is needed. In our groups, we explore exactly the same sorts of topics, but it's a little bit less personal and focused. They're very creative, very relaxed, and mostly provide space for the young people to talk to others who are experiencing similar problems under the guidance of one of our mentors or youth workers. So those services that we provide can be in the community. So we hold them at various community centres. We meet young people in public spaces like parks and cafes to do their one-to-ones. They can also take place in school, and that's an area of our work that we're increasingly growing at the moment. So in school, we can offer exactly the same services, but they'll be organised through the school. So we might have an agreement with the school to go in for 1 day a week, in which we'll have 6 one-to-one slots. We'll work with the first young people that are referred to us, and then when they're ready to move on, that slot will become available for the school to refer someone else. Similarly, schools sometimes like to have internal groups where it's just pupils from their school. Sometimes those take place after the school day or at lunchtimes, but they can also fill enrichment slots, or in some cases for small groups, we take them out of curriculum time where that intervention is really needed. The final thing that I'll just mention quickly is we are also, all of the staff at 2020 are accredited RSE educators, and we do now offer RSE workshops outside of the charitable work we do. So those are paid. They're designed to be sort of covering the expenses of the workshops only. Just that makes use of the kind of skills and experience that we have. We also find it feeds into our other work particularly well. So where schools do engage us to do a series of workshops or drop-down days on RSE, that can help us in school to identify young people who would benefit from closer support work with us. So quickly on our referral criteria, I've kind of covered a bit of this already by saying who our services best support. So we do assess all young people who come to us to check that they are right for our services. The sort of referral criteria that we're looking for is someone that requires relationships, information, advice and guidance, suffering from poor self-esteem that is related to either their own self-image and the way they view their body, or to relationship issues, that's engaging in perhaps risky, unsafe behaviour, particularly in relation to relationships, is engaging in unhealthy sexual activity, is perhaps more sexually active than would be expected for their age range, or is identified by social services or the police as being at high risk of exploitation. As you mentioned, the service is predominantly for girls or for any young person who identifies as being happy to receive support from a women's service. It's worth saying, just before I move on from the referrals, we do the group that we target, we tend to talk about a 1 to 10 scale, and that we want to work with young people who are kind of 4 to 8 on the scale. So that identifies that some young people may have transient issues with relationships that are better dealt with just by their usual kind of school services or by parents, but also that there are some young people who we are not the best specialists to support. So if they're already in crisis, we would look to refer them to mental health services, to children's social services, perhaps to domestic violence support, if that's the relationship that they're in. in terms of how we engage with other organisations, so the biggest thing is taking and giving referrals. So we accept referrals from the young person themselves if they're over 16, from a parent or guardian, from schools, and from any other professionals or charities that are working with that young person. To refer, I'll give my email address and also our website in a moment. So you can refer directly through the website. You can email me. I can send you the specific link for a young person. For organisations that refer regularly, we do also create dedicated links for those organisations. That just speeds the process up a bit because it's got some information pre-added. So if you do think that you're likely to refer a lot of young people to our services, I can get that set up for you. We are also always interested in events like this because we often refer our young people on to more specialist support if that would be fitting for the situation they're in. So, for example, we do work with a lot of LGBT young people, but we're not specialists in that area. So it might be that we refer them on for additional support. If their risky behaviour crosses over into domestic violence or abuse, that's the sort of thing that we might refer on. We're currently in a period of expansion, as I mentioned, so we're always looking up to set up new groups and school services. So if anyone has links with schools who might benefit and aren't engaged with us already, we are taking on new schools in Leicester City and in Loughborough at the moment. And we're also looking for new venues where we can set up our groups. So we like to particularly target deprived areas that might not have that many community services for young people. So we have a lot based in community centres around the city already, but we're always looking for new venues and new opportunities to set groups up. And then obviously the sort of fundraising and finance side of things. So as a charity, a lot of our income is grants and sort of trust funds for the specific work that we do. And I've included Joanna's email address on there if anyone wants a conversation around that or to discuss it, because as I mentioned, I'm quite new and that's definitely outside of my area of expertise. But for anything else around our programme delivery and referrals, I'm your best sort of central point of contact and can then put you in touch with a coordinator for your specific area. There's also a lot more information about what we do is available on our website, and also we're quite active on social media, so you'll always be able to find the latest news about what we're doing there. Fantastic.
Lovely. Thank you very much.
Any questions? Welcome to ask.
Yeah, any questions? It is really nice actually, because you do sort of sit under the other speakers that we've had, as you're saying, so you'd refer into them, but you're probably a sort of service for some people, so that's great.
Brittany, we lost your video. Is it?
Oh,
yeah, sorry.
So does anybody have any questions?
I want to ask a question. Actually, it's a general question, but refers to Bethany's charity, the charity she works for as well. I think, as the small charities, what are the difficulties that you face to move forward? That that acts as a barrier to you, and what do you think you need to be supported with to improve the services?
So I'll say the obvious one first for us, which is funding. So we're going through a funding transition. We were quite fortunate actually at a point where many other charities weren't, in that because of the change of our focus and our downsizing just before COVID hit, we did benefit from a lot of the money that was available then to keep charities going, and a lot of our work was seen as crucial to supporting young people through COVID. Those funds are obviously coming to an end now, so we're having to work really hard to re-establish our fundraising routes, because a lot of those were linked to our previous work in employability. So funding's always a restriction. The other thing we're focusing on at the moment is just getting ourselves better known for what we do, getting our name out there, because schools are a huge part of what we do, and schools often focus on they like organizations to be ones that they've heard of or that have been around for a long time. So I guess that's the other barrier to us particularly expanding, is we're working on our networking and getting to know the region.
I think schools do need some help with some RSE education now and workshops, so particularly with new elements in keeping children safe in education.
Yep.
So it's a good time, I think, for you to try and we can pass on your information to the people who deliver safeguarding training to schools if you'd like us to.
Yeah, definitely would be interested in that. So yeah, our RSE work came into being in line with the changes in the curriculum.
Yeah.
So in September last year is when we first started delivering that, and we're now looking to grow it as more schools look for external support with that, because it is really closely tied to our mission as a charity.
Yeah. Brilliant. Thank you so much. Does anybody else have any other questions? Oh, Zoe's got a hand up.
Not a question, just that obviously we do quite a bit of very specific RSE work here at the centre with our groups, and I would love a conversation at some point, Bethan.
Definitely, be very happy to do that.
Lovely, great. It's networking in progress. Thank you. Fabulous. Right. So I'd like to ask our last presenter, Eric, to take the stage. Thank you.
Last but not least.
Yeah, thank you very much. You can all hear me. I'll try and share my screen. I've not done this on this platform before, but let's see whether it works. No.
If you need me to share it, I'm just saving it.
Yeah, I think that.
Just gonna open it now.
As we try to upload this, I can introduce myself. Eric Kwaweru, I'm the manager of the Center Project. The Center Project is a local charity based in the city center. We do a lot of work in the community, supporting both adults and young people. And we've been doing this for over 25 years. But the work, what I'm presenting today is mainly our work with young people, the Freedom Youth Club, which as the slide will come up shortly, is we work with unaccompanied asylum-seeking young people. You can
you see the slides?
Yeah, if you do the presentation.
But it's not in the presenter view, Daria.
Okay.
So just
Yeah. It's just...
slideshow at the top and then.
Yep. There you go.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, so today I'm going to talk mainly about Freedom Youth Club. As I said, is targeted at young refugees and asylum-seeking young people. Most of them are unaccompanied minors. And we've been running this Freedom Youth Club for the last, almost 15 years. And it started when some young people started attending our day services for adults. And we thought that actually there was a safeguarding issue there, and we started targeting services specifically for young people. And it has grown quite substantially over the years. But what we try to do is basically have a safe space for the young people to come. You know, when they are coming to us, I think they face a lot of challenges even before some of the youth services were scaled down. They still face a challenge accessing some of those services. So you have, language barriers, sort of issues in terms of them feeling not belonging to those communities, especially them being unaccompanied. And we offer a space where they just come in. First of all, it's a youth club, your typical youth club where they can drop in, have play pool, table tennis, Xbox, and feel safe and included. But within that, we also then offer a lot of workshops in terms of we talk to the young people, try to know what the challenges they are facing, what they would want to learn, and put in services, mainly bring other providers in. So, for instance, with art and craft over the years, we've been working with pedestrian who will come and deliver services here. We've worked with other groups. We know that we are quite keen actually to expose the young people to a lot more providers and not just us. But the main thing is that they come here, they are able to have one-to-one support. They see us more frequently than they see other people. They perhaps don't see their social workers or as often as we see them. So we get to know them quite well, and also make them feel actually that there's another so adults that they can trust, they can rely on, especially when they're ones lonely and isolated. And our role is actually just to enable them to feel that they are part of the community, they feel supported, that whatever issue they have, there's somebody that they can talk to. And actually also explaining about things in less about life in the UK, just having somebody there they can ask. And that came to us, especially just as an example, when the lockdown happened last March and we were all told to stay at home. And actually, some people didn't understand that. And the fact that they were told to stay at home, we have 2 young people who never left the house for almost 3 weeks. Didn't understand actually that they were being allowed to go out and get food. So by the time we were calling them, because we thought we've not had anything from these people, they had run out of food. And we had to make an attempt to make sure that we took them food, explain to them actually, you can come out, you can go for a walk, you can exercise, and basic stuff like that. For some of our young people, need somebody to explain, and because they don't have that person who they have regular access to, our role in their lives becomes quite important. If you go through the slides, I'm looking at time, you'll see some of the activities we have. We try to introduce as many activities as possible, art and craft, music. We talk about, we've been talking about sex and sexuality, just enabling them to understand what is acceptable, what is not. Obviously, some of them are coming from cultures that are very different to ours, and enabling them to understand and transition from perhaps how they relate to women, for instance, and how they will relate to them here. Having very open conversations about it. And actually, the fact that some our youth workers, for instance, are women, they'll come and start having a completely different relationship with women in terms of seeing them being empowered, and they'll ask questions. And I think the fact that we do it in such an informal way enables the young people to build rapport with us and make them feel that whatever happens, there's somebody here. I still get people, some of our first young people who are now settled with families. Whenever they transition to something else, they'll always come back to me and say, I'm getting married, or I have a child, or I'm getting a job, or I'm starting university. And actually that shows that even though they move on, they'll always have a sense of connectivity with us and come that we are still playing a part in their lives, which is quite important, because some of them, for instance, when they start getting challenges, for instance, they need for instance, housing. They have a problem with housing and they are no longer accessing our youth club. We still are part of the first people they come to talk to, whatever challenges they have. They will end up coming to us. So although we say we are working with 13 to 19-year-olds, we leave it open that any young person who's been with us at any time can always come back and engage with us, because they know we are always here for them. and will not, we are not going to send them away. And we never, although we are funded to work with, 13 to 19, we make sure that that never is a barrier to us supporting young people moving forward. Because, we are talking about, most of them are care leavers. So if we are talking about 19, we are not going to tell them, don't come to us. Right now, for instance, there's a young person who came to me saying he's doing his GCSEs and he doesn't know what to do next. How do I proceed? And actually, I was thinking, my son is doing GCSEs, and the same conversation I had with him is the conversation I had with my son. And I just looked at him and thought, there is nobody there for him to even just ask questions. And the fact that he can come and just sit with me and have this sort of very informal but important conversation, is that's what we are here for. And that's open to any of our young people who come to us. At the moment, we see between 15 to 25 people per session. We have 2 sessions every week, on a Tuesday evening and a Friday evening. And those sessions, we've run them throughout, even throughout the pandemic, we still had targeted support. So we were inviting between 5 and 8 young people per session. So we've maintained contact throughout, especially those ones who we knew would struggle a bit more. So we were quite keen that we kept contact with them. Now we are back to normal, and we are seeing between 15 and 25 young people. And most of them will just drop in. They perhaps will not stay forever, for the 3 hours. Some will just drop in, come say hello, catch up with everybody else, and then stay for an hour and go. And because I think it's up to them to make use of the time we are here. So if they want to stay for the 3 hours because they are engaging with other people and playing with their friends, that's fine. If they just want to come and talk to us, present an issue or get support, and they move on, that's okay with us. And I think that level of sort of very accessible service is what Freedom Youth Club is for this group of young people who would be quite lonely and isolated otherwise.
Fabulous, thank you, Eric. I'm actually aware of Freedom Youth Club because I said my background is in residential services. Well, I still occasionally do shifts in children's homes in Leicester City, and I know we've got young people who attend the Freedom Youth Club, and it has been an absolute massive support to them. Like you say, it's that sense of belonging, of finding somewhere where they can talk to people about issues that the people there understand and know about, and have a community that they really value. So it's fabulous. It's a really, really brilliant centre. Has anybody got any questions for Eric?
I got questions about fundraising for Eric too. Do you have the same problems, or do you have any barriers to improve your service?
I think fundraising is one of our biggest challenges, as I said, in terms of providing a service that is not focused on funding. That is what we try to do. Although we get some funding from Leicester City Council, and we've also got some funding from Children in Need. But that funding is very specific in terms of is perhaps to employ a member of staff. But in terms, and obviously they would want us to work with a very, it's 13 to 19. Anybody falling outside that, that's not part of the funding. But we are quite keen that when a young person comes to talk to us, funding should never feature, they should never even know where the funding comes from. We are working with a young person, whether they are, so if he was, if somebody has been with us from say 15 and they are now 19, are we going to say, sorry, we can't see you anymore? No, we don't do that. So we try to get funding from elsewhere so that there's that continuity of care irrespective of the age bracket of the young person we are dealing with. And I think getting that additional pot of funding is always a challenge, because we need to almost have what we call general funds to enable us to meet that need as the young people come in.
Thank you.
And that's the beauty of your sector, isn't it? Of the voluntary sector, that you're not bound in the same way. I know funding has its restrictions and of course it's barriers because you have to fight for it all the time. But in terms of sort of statutory sort of agencies, we have to kind of follow certain things to the letter. So if it's 19, it's 19 almost, and that's it. So I love the way that you can be more flexible in your environment, and that's why it's so brilliant to have. I mean, we've just had 4 different agencies in this session. What a fabulous, support you are. Some to specific groups of young people, some more broadly across, the piece, and that's fantastic. And without those services, then the statutory end of the services would have a lot more people coming in, wouldn't they? Because you're picking people up and helping them at that early point, and hopefully giving them the support they need at that stage, rather than it's getting, escalating into something else. Has anybody got any other questions for Eric? Now, some people have had to leave, unfortunately, because of other meetings, which I do understand. But just
There
a bit
were
of
some
support.
comments, Liz.
Yeah, I was going to say just a bit of support for the session, that these types of sessions are great as a way to share information and grow knowledge and awareness. I agree. Anna, fantastic to get updates on such fantastic projects. Yeah, I can definitely see how we can and should all be working together. Yeah, there's such a combination of support elements, and that's right, isn't it? So, if you've got somebody who's seeking asylum, who's also perhaps part of the LGBT community, there we can work together. Or somebody who's perhaps at risk of being exploited, but only in the early phases, or there's domestic abuse. All these services, have got can overlap or do overlap, don't they? So yeah, fantastic. I'm actually thinking that we should do this sort of thing more regularly. Potentially, Daria's saying, no, don't make me do it, because she's been the driving force behind the arrangement.
No, I love it. It's really nice to hear different voices which are behind the scenes. When we are training, we don't really get to know the needs as much, do we, unless we dig in. And
yeah, and what I can tell you is that I do share support agency names and all the time when I'm delivering just my basic safeguarding training. So it's really helpful for me to know about what's available, and hopefully promote what you do as well. So thank you for that. So yeah, I think we may contact you about other types of events like this. It was actually suggested by Wilma King, who did the keynote speech. She said maybe you should have just once every 2 months or something, or an hour set aside for this type of networking event. And I thought, actually, isn't something that I've thought of. I could see it working, especially from this session today, which has been fantastic. And it's a shame there aren't more people here, but we will share it. So and people are watching the videos that we're sharing. So I think, just be reassured by that. It is getting to a wider audience over time. I think we've perhaps had a bit of overkill with 2 weeks in a row. I have to think about that. 2 weeks, I can only get 1 day off to do training in those 2 weeks. So yeah, perhaps something for us to think about in the future. Oh, does anybody have any other questions or observations they'd like to make? If not, I think we can call the session to a close. Oh, Eric, did you want to say something?
No. I was just a general feedback in terms of, I think, though I've not managed to attend as many sessions as I would have wished, the fact that someone could come in and out and look at what is available, I think I found that quite useful. And yeah.
Thank you. That's worth knowing, actually. Yeah, thank you very much. We're going to try and evaluate it in some way at the end, but yeah, that's really useful to know. Thank you, Eric. Okay. Splendid. Zoe put fantastic to see all the other agencies and work. Yeah, really good. Thank you for coming. Thank you for presenting. And I think we'll draw this session to a close. So
Okay.
thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Anna. Thanks for coming. Thank you, Zoe. Thank you, Eric. Amy.